أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Welcome to the class today. I hope you all are okay. Everything's fine with you. If you're in the class, please do message me so I know you're there. If you're not in the class, it's okay. We're going to continue, inshallah, and you can watch on the recordings. I hope everything is okay with you, and the last lectures are covered. You managed to cover them, inshallah. So yesterday's class was more of a review, a revision, because probably the message was not read by many that the class is going to happen. So I did not cover any new topic yesterday, and I just revised what we did in the command and forbidding. Today, inshallah, I plan to touch on a new topic directly, where we will, inshallah, start exploring some new elements in the fi'l study. Okay. So if you have any questions from the previous class, please do let me know. I will try to answer that, inshallah. Otherwise, we'll just jump into the topic and start the study of a new chapter, a new study altogether, which is still fi'l study, but it's a different fi'l. Okay, so inshallah. So let me share my screen with you, and then we'll kick off the session, inshallah. Give me a second. You should be able to see my screen pretty soon now. Anytime. Okay, so I can see that you probably can see my screen. So inshallah, let me start. So today what we're going to do is, I will not revise what we have done in the last class because it was more of a revision session. But if you really want to revise the commanding and forbidding, now we have two lessons. One is the one where we actually did the commanding and forbidding, and the one that we did yesterday as well. It was a short class, 50 something minutes, and we covered the forbidding and commanding again very quickly on it, and touched on very few exercises as well. So let me just directly start with the topic today, and inshallah we'll take it from there. Okay, so today we want to do the passives. Passives. Okay, in the fi'l study, we're still in the fi'l study, and we're doing the passives. Okay, so within the fi'l study, we're going to touch on the passives. Passives apply to both past tense, and we need to understand what exactly is the difference between the active and the passive. Okay, and because passive is quite widely used in the Quran as well, so we need to understand the difference between the active and the passive. So let's first do the difference between the active and the passive. Okay? Difference between active and passive fi'ls. Okay? Let's do that. So what happens is, what I want to do is, in active fi'ls, if you take an example of an active fi'l, you would write a statement like, for example, Ali. You would say Ali ate an apple. Ali ate an apple. Okay, this is kind of an active example that you would create. So in this case, what is the fi'l? The fi'l is the ate. The fi'l is the ate, the action that is being performed. And what is the fa'il? Fa'il, the doer of an action, that's Ali, isn't it? The fa'il is a doer of an action. Okay, and the action is done to an apple. An action is done to an apple. Okay, So that's kind of a done to. Let me just make it yellow. Okay, it's a done to. So it says, okay, and then I go forward further and I create a similar sentence but with a passive form, right? Say passive. In passive, what I'm going to say is an apple was eaten. An apple was eaten. So what you have is still, you have an apple. You have an apple, you have an action. What you don't have is the file, right? What you don't have is the doer of an action. So you still have the action, and you still have an apple, which was the done to element, right? The action on whom the action was performed. It was an apple because you ate an apple, right? You still have it, But what you don't have is who ate the apple. You just don't know who ate the apple, right? So this is a typical example of how active and passive come together. Active and passive come together. So in the case of active, what do we have here? What do we have? Let me clarify this. Okay, this has to be clear. Okay, what do we have? We have a doer that is known. Doer is known. In this case, the doer is known in the case of active. But in the case of passive, well, who is missing? The doer is unknown. We don't know the doer. Okay? What we know is the apple was eaten. What we know that the apple was eaten. But who ate the apple, we just don't know. Okay? We don't know who ate the apple. So the doer is unknown. And that's the prime difference. That's the prime difference between the active and the passive. What we have done so far is active. All the fi'ls that we have done, all the af'als that we have done are active af'als. Okay? They're active af'al. We have done the active fi'ls only. We have not done the passive. This is what we're going to do today. Okay? This is about passive fi'ls. Right? So this difference has to be clear. Okay? So in case of the active fi'l, we have a doer that is known. And in case of passive, we don't have a doer that is known. Rather, what we have instead is something that's called done to, right? We know who the action was done to, right? Just like an apple. We know the done to. We don't know the doer. We don't know the doer, but we know the done to. Okay? Let me just put it here. Doer is unknown. Done to is known. Okay? Done to is known. Done to is the yellow one, an apple, in this case. Okay? And the doer is like green here. See the difference? The question is, why would we do that? Why do we need fi'l in the passive voice? Why do we need it? What's the impact? Okay, so the impact of the passive. Impact of the passives. Okay. So the primary reason we use the passives are used in the Quran are basically twofold. Okay, so passive is effectively it is used to emphasize more on the action, more on the fi'l, which is an action, okay, at an expense of file, okay, doer. Okay? When Allah wants to emphasize more on the action and not really on the file, on the doer of an action, he would use passives. Because in the passive, you won't have a file. Okay? You will not have a file in case of passives. Okay, but in case of active, you do. So when the action has to be emphasized a bit more, then a passive is used. This is one of the major impacts, okay, for using the passives. Second, it is used to so the how should I put it? Let me just think about it. It is used to not limit the file. Not limit the file. Okay. So if there's an action, for example, let me construct an example. For example, if I tell you they are they are hated, for example. Now, they are hated. Okay. Now, this statement is effectively not worrying about who hates them. It's not worried about who hates them. Okay, but it's more emphasizing on the fact that they are hated, isn't it? So the fi'l itself is identified a bit more strongly. So it is a bit more emphasis on the fi'l. But it is also not telling you how many people hate them, right? It does not mean they are hated. It does not mean one person hates them, two hates them, three hates them, four hates them, or 50,000 hates them. You don't know this, right? So the file is not limited here. So when you have to keep the doors of the file open, who could potentially have performed this, but you emphasize on the action, then you use the passives. Okay, this is the second application of the passives, which is in the Quran. Okay, two aspects. So Allah uses fi'ls to emphasize the action while He is not limiting the file. Okay, so in one line, this is how what the impact is: to emphasize on the action while not limiting the file. Okay? They are used to emphasize on the action while not limiting the file. Okay? Effectively, that's what I'm telling you. Okay? Action, which is fi'l. Let me just say fi'l because it's an Arabic class. Yes. They are used to emphasize on the fi'l while not limiting the file. You understand? So the way you use it here is you are emphasizing on an action, but you're not limiting the file. Okay. All right. So this is effectively the impact of the passives that you need to keep in mind, inshallah. Okay? Now, once you've done it, you also need to understand the concept of done to, right? The concept of done to. As you already know from here, is done to is not a doer. It's not a doer. It's someone the action is performed on. You don't know the doer in case of passive, right? In case of passive, you don't know the doer. So when you construct a passive fi'l, you do not have a file. You do not have a file. Okay. Although there is an inside pronoun, but that inside pronoun is not a file. It's a done to. It's a done to because the impact is not on the file. The action is used to perform some action on someone who that we're calling done to, but the doer is unknown, right? So, for example, doer. Let me construct an example for you here. And what I'm saying is doer versus the done to. That's what we are studying, done to. Okay, doer versus the done to. That's the third bit we're studying today. Okay. The first, overall, the concept of the difference between the active and the passive, then the impact of the passive, why they're effectively used, and then the doer versus the done to concept that we're going to do. Okay. Right. So if I say Nasara, which is our favorite fi'l, Nasara. Okay. Nasara means, what does it mean? He helped. He helped. Okay. Now, I'm going to make it a passive fail, but I'm going to give you the technique to make it passive later on. Okay. The technique to make it passive later on, but I'm just going to make it a passive, right? Just bear with me. Just bear with me. So the passive form of Nasara would be Nusira. Nusira. Okay. This would mean he was helped. This would mean he was helped. Nusira means he was helped. Okay. Now the difference. Both have a hua inside. They both have a hua inside. But in the first case, the he is a doer. The he is a doer. But in the second case, the he is a done to. Okay. The he is a doer in the first case, which we call file. Okay? And in the second case, he is a done to. The action is done to him, right? The action is done to Hua. He is not doing the action, right? We don't know the doer. And this done to is called naibul file. Naibul file. Called naibul file. Okay? In this case, he is a file, a doer. And in this case, in the Nusira case, it is going to be the done to. Okay, so I'm just highlighting so you know the difference, what I'm talking about. Okay? So in the passives, we don't have a file, but we have a naibul file. The action, who the action was done to. Okay, who the action was done to. This has to be clear, right? Now, the way you identify the doer in the active fail, the way you identify those doers in the active fail is exactly the same way you would identify the doers, done tos in the passive voice. All the rules of the inside doer and outside doer would apply as it is. Okay, as it is. There's no difference. So if you have a Nusira, which is a Hua version, there's a possibility that you have an outside done to, right? You have an outside naibul file, okay? Just like you had the outside doer. There's no change there. So don't worry about that. There's nothing new to learn there. It's just that you need to know that the inside pronoun in the passive voice is not the doer. It's a naibul file. It's a done to. Okay, because the doer in passive is unknown. The doer is unknown. Okay? And the outside doer, just like in active, the outside doer is also going to be the same process, the way you have in active, the same with the passive. So if I construct some examples for both cases, let me do that. So it's Nasara again. Nasara. Nasara Muhammadun. Nasara Muhammadun and Nusira Muhammadun. And Nusira Muhammadun. Don't worry about how I'm constructing this, right? I'll tell you that. Just bear with me here. Nasara Muhammadun and Nusira Muhammadun. Nasara Muhammadun and Nusira Muhammadun. Let me pick the Nasara Muhammadun first. Okay? Nasara Muhammadun first. Now, this is a typical example of an active fi'l where you have Nasara in a huwa form and you have a raf'a ism after it, which is the outside doer. So if you translate this, you would translate it as Muhammad helped. Yes? Muhammad helped. Now let's take the second example, because Muhammad was the outside doer here, right? In this case, Nusira Muhammadun. Nusira Muhammadun. Now, in case of the Nusira Muhammadun, we don't have outside doers. In case of passive, we have outside dantus. Outside dantus. Because this Nusira is in the huwa form, you would translate it as Muhammad was helped. Muhammad was helped. Now, this was the active voice, the first one, and the second one was the passive. Okay? In both cases, Muhammad in the first case is a doer and it's active. Okay? In the second case, Muhammad is a done to and it's passive. Excuse me. Right? All the concepts, the same. The fi'l has to be in the hiya or the huwa form, and there has to be an ism in the rafa after it, and so on. All of those concepts apply, and those concepts are going to be applicable to passives as well as active, both. Active and passive both can operate with past tense and present tense. They both operate with both types of fi'ls. Okay, so we will do that inshallah in a minute. Okay. If there's any question, please do ask. There's nothing more to tell here, really. So I don't want to go and revise all the concepts of the inside doer and the outside doer. You have done it quite comprehensively. You're quite fluent with this. All those concepts are same. There's nothing that changes. Everything remains the same. The same story with the jumla fi'liya. With the same story with the jumla fi'liya. In jumla fi'liya, all the concepts apply. All the concepts that you have done apply. But jumla fi'liya, in case of passives, instead of a file, it's going to have what? Naibul file. It's going to have a naibul file. The structure of the jumla fi'liya, in case of passive, let me make it like this. It's the same concept, nothing changes as such. Okay. Okay, so in case of naibul, in case of jumla fi'liya, what did you have? You have A, you have A, B, and then C, and then B, and then A. That's what you had, right? Okay. And then first you had the fi'l, and you had the file in case of the jumla fi'liya. Okay. This is jumla fi'liya we're talking about. Fi'l based sentences with passives. That's what we're talking about. Okay. Jumla fi'liya. Jumla fi'liya. Okay, so you had a fi'l, and then you had a file. Instead of file, you will have a naibul file here. Naibul file. Oops. This is what happens when you don't change a keyboard and start typing Arabic. Sorry about that. Okay. Naibul file. Instead of a file, you have a naibul file. Okay. And then you have the same story here. You have maf'ul. You have maf'ul. Nothing changes. Same concepts. Everything same. And then you have muta'alliq bil fi'l. Muta'alliq bil fi'l. Okay. No difference. It's the same stuff. Only difference is the naibul file. So when you have a passive-based sentence, you would be labeling B at you'll be calling B an naibul file instead of a file. Okay, that's the major difference. But the concepts, what can be maf'ul and ism in nasab state, another jumla fi'liya, another jumla ismiya, and so on, and the muta'alliq bil fi'l, what can it be, harf of jar, and so on, all of that, it all remains the same. There's no change. Okay, it's the same concepts altogether. Okay, so this is all establishing a context of the passives. Before I start telling you how to construct passives, you really need to understand what passives are, right? This is what I'm telling you, what passives are. You need to understand them, okay? And if you understand them, then we can jump into constructing the passives, which is very easy as well. There's a very straightforward method of constructing a passive that I'll tell you, inshallah. And I'll share all these notes with you, inshallah, as well. We have our own notes, Albayaan notes, that we have prepared for this. I will show them to you and also share them with you. Okay? Okay. So just to have a very quick summary before we move forward. Just to have a very, very quick summary. Okay. So we are doing passives. The difference between the passive and the active is active has a doer which is known, and a passive has a done to which is known. There is no doer which is known. Doer is not known. Okay, doer is not known, unknown. Okay, just keep that in mind. Okay, the impact that passives create is on the action, on the file itself, and they do not limit the file. Okay, they do not limit the file. Okay, they are used to emphasize the action while not limiting the file. Okay, so for example, in this example, it is not known how many or who hates them. Okay? It is not know how many or who hates them. Okay, so the file is not limited. Okay, that's the impact. That's why the passives are used sometimes very, very beautifully in the Quran. Give you some examples, inshallah. Okay. Then there's the concepts of doer and done to. That's just like the concept of doer in the active voice, where the doer is a file. Because there is no doer known in the passives, you don't have a concept of a doer or a file in the passive. You have a concept of done to because it's more emphasizing on the action and who the action is done to. So the inside pronoun is a naibul file in case of the passive. The inside pronoun is a naibul file in case of passive. The concept of the outside doer in the case of active applies as it is to the passive too, right? So you should have a fi'l in the hiya and or the huwa form, and then there's an ism which is in rafa state in the front. Okay, then you can say it's an outside doer. Okay, but in that case, you call it outside doer, which is a file. In case of a passive, you would call it an outside naibul file. It's a naibul file. Okay. So there is no change. Okay, you're gonna have an outside naibul file. Let me write it here just more explicitly. Outside doer outside doer is outside done to. Outside done to. Okay? So we are completely clear here. Okay? This outside doer in the first example, and the other example, it's outside done to. Okay? And then the jumla failures. The jumla failures, the way they are constructed, you will just look for the naibul file instead of the file. Okay? They can be used with both past tense and the present tense. Okay? Passives can be used for past and present both. Okay? El Madi and Fail Mudare. It can be used for both. Okay? These are the three things, effective, 4 things, concepts that we have learned. There are 4 concepts that we have learned. Okay? In the previous class, I made a table. Let me open it if I can very quickly. So lecture number 31. I don't have to construct it again. Let me just quickly bring it up. Wait a second. Yep, that's the table I'm after. Okay, that's the table I'm after. This is from the last class. Okay, so what I'm going to do is paste here. So okay. What we have done so far, okay? Just to summarize the entire fi'l study so far. So we have a fi'l mudari and the fi'l madi, and the jumla fi'liya concept applies to both, regardless active or passive. Regardless active or passive. Active and passive. Both, okay? Active and passive, both. It applies. Then you have the fi'l mudari mansub, light present tense, which is not applicable to the madi. Fi'l mudari majzoom, which is lightest present tense, which is also not applicable to the madi. Then you have fi'l nahi, which is forbidding, not applicable to the fi'l madi. Fi'l amr, not applicable to the fi'l madi. This is commanding, okay? And now we're jumping into another topic, which is the fi'l mudari majhul. Fi'l mudari majhul is the passive. Majhul is passive, okay? We could have a fi'l mazi majhul, which is the past passive. They both apply to each other. They both apply to each other. There is a concept in both cases, okay? So I could just say fi'l majhul applies to both, but because they're different terminologies, we call it fi'l mudari majhul in case of present tense passive, and in fi'l madi majhul in case of past passive. So I've kept it different. Okay? I've kept it a bit more segregated, so we are clear. Okay. All right. Excellent. 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 Okay, so what we're gonna do is, now we know that we have the fi'l mudari majhul, which is another concept that we are going to do, and fi'l madi majhul. I'm gonna tell you the tricks of how to construct the passives, both in case of the present and in case of the past. In case of the present and in case of the past. Okay. So let's do that, inshallah. Let's construct a Nasara chart. What I'm going to construct here is past passive chart. Okay, which we call fi'l madi majhul. Okay, majhul. fi'l madi majhul. All right. So there are some rules to construct. There's some rules to construct. Rules to construct past passive. Okay. Just keep those rules in mind. They're not difficult. They're quite simple. They're quite simple. Okay. And then we'll construct the chart. Rule number one. Rule number one. The rule number one is sukoons do not change. Sukoons do not change. That's rule number one. Okay? Okay? Rule number two. Rule number two. The original last letter. The original last letter. And anything after it. And anything after it does not change. I'll tell you what that means. Okay? I'll tell you what that means. The original last letter and anything after it does not change. Okay? It means that effectively the endings does not change. Okay? Endings do not change. Do not change. Effectively, this is what we're saying. I'll tell you, inshallah, when we construct it, it's going to become clear. That's rule number two. Rule number one, sukoons do not change. Rule number two, the original last letter and anything after it does not change. It effectively means endings do not change. Rule number three, the past passive always starts with one or multiple dhammas. Okay? It will always start with one or multiple dhammas. Okay? It will always start with one or multiple dhammas. Okay? Just keep that in mind. And the last rule, the dhammas are followed by one kasra. The dhammas are followed by one kasra. Four rules. Four rules that I'm telling you here. Okay. Rule number one: sukoons. If you see sukoon, you don't need to change anything. It does not change. Okay. The original last letter, and anything after it does not change. Let me give you an example right away here. Okay. So if I tell you, let's say, nusira, the same example, nusira. In the nusira case, what is the original last letter? The original last letter is the ra. The original last letter is the ra. It's the letter that is part of the spelling of this word, actually. Okay, original last letter is the ra. Okay, it is not going to change. It is going to remain the same, and anything after it will also remain the same. Okay, that's what we are saying here. I don't know how I cannot highlight it, but you get the point, right? So original last letter cannot change. Just keep that in mind. You know what I'm talking about here, don't you? Okay, the original last letter is the ra, and it is not going to change, or anything comes after it is also not going to change. So if you're talking about the hum form or a huma form, the original last letter you can identify by just going back to the hua form. The last letter of the hua form is your original last letter. The last letter of the hua form is your original last letter. Okay? So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to construct passive and active together. Okay? Passive and active together. Okay, so we have more clarity. We have more clarity, inshallah. Okay? It's going to be active and passive. So you see the difference. Active, passive. Active, passive. Okay. Now let's start with the nasara. Nasara. And apply these rules. In case of active, it's very simple. Nasara, as you know, nasara, nasara, nasaru, isn't it? This is what you are quite convenient, you're quite used to now. Okay, nasaru. Okay. Now I want to construct a passive out of this, and I want to apply the rules. Rule number one: sukoons do not change. I'm looking at the hua form. I'm looking at the hua form. Sukoons do not change. Is there a sukoon here? No. So I'm not worried about this rule. Go to rule number two. The original last letter, and anything after it does not change. So what am I talking about? I'm talking about the ra. I'm talking about the ra. This ra is not going to change. Okay? This is what I'm talking about. It's the original last letter, and anything after it is also not going to change. So I'm not going to touch it. Okay? Then rule number three, the past passive always starts with one or multiple dhammas. Okay? One or multiple dhammas. Okay? So it definitely starts with one dhamma. So I'm going to say noon and I'm going to say oo. Noon. Okay? We're going to say noon and I'm going to put dhamma. Okay? I could also go with the swad and say nu surah, but I still have to follow all the rules. I'm not sure what haraka has to come on the swad yet. I don't know. I don't know yet, right? I know the last letter is not going to change because of the rule number two. I know the rule number one does not apply. Okay? And I know the rule number three can apply on swad, but we also have a rule number four, which is the dhammas are followed by one kasra. If I put a dhamma on the swad, where am I going to put the kasra? I'm not going to be able to put the kasra anywhere, right? And I have to put the kasra. So I'm going to put the kasra on the swad. Okay? I'm going to put the kasra on the swad. What I'm saying is nusira. Okay? So what I've done here is I have started this fi'il. I've started this fi'il with the dhamma, which I knew from the point number three. I have put at least one kasra followed by dhamma, which is point number four. Okay, the original last letter hasn't changed for me. It hasn't changed for me. The ending hasn't changed for me. And the sukoons hasn't changed because there weren't any. There weren't any. Okay. So in this case, the active nasra form means he helped, and the nusira would mean he was helped. He was helped. Okay. I'm going to reduce the font size a little bit because we're going to overrun on the next page. Just want it to be on the same page. Okay, you get it? You get it? Good. So same rules we need to apply on the other one. Okay, let's do the other ones. Nasara. Now, same thing, nothing changes. Is there a sukoon? No, there's no sukoon. Let's move forward. The original last letter and anything after is not going to change. This means the ra and the alif is not going to change. The ra is the original last letter. How do I know? Because of the huwa form. The last letter of the huwa form is the original last letter. And anything after it does not change. So alif is also not going to change, right? The past passive always starts with one or multiple dhamma. So I can start this with the noon. I can start with the noon with a dhamma. Okay, and then the dhammas are followed by one kasra, and I must give one kasra to the swad, otherwise I will not be able to fulfill this rule, right? And I keep everything else the same. Nusira, nusira. Okay. If nasara means they both helped, nusira would mean they both were helped. Okay? They both were helped. Okay? You still have they both, you still have huma. This is the huma form, right? This is the huma form. Hua, huma, hum. Yeah, remember they are inside pronouns. They both is an inside pronoun, huma, right? And nasara and nusira, they have hua inside, right? But in case of active, we have doers. In case of passive, we have done tos, files, and the naibul file concept that we just did. Okay. Same ruling applies here. Same ruling applies here. There's no sukoon, so it's not going to change anything. It must, the original last letter cannot change, and anything after it means everything starting from the ra all the way to alif is not going to change. Anything starting from the ra all the way to the alif is not going to change. Okay, and it starts with a dhamma. Start with a dhamma. Okay, and it must have one kasra. So I must give that kasra to swad because there is no other option, right? And I keep everything intact. Nusiru, nusiru. Okay, they. Wait a second. They helped. They were helped. Okay, that's a difference. You see the difference? Nusiru. Slight haraka changes. Slight haraka changes, and it completely changes the meaning. Right? You completely get rid of the file and you introduce the naibul file. Just slight haraka changes. So it's very critical to recite things correctly, to analyze them correctly. Okay. All right. So let's go to the hiya form. Nasarat. 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 Hiya nasarat. Okay. Huma nasarata. Remember? Huma nasarata. And hunna nasarna. We know that, right? Hunna nasarna. Same ruling. Sukoons do not change. The nasarat is not going to change. Ta is not going to change. There's a sukoon this time. It's not going to change. Okay. Original last letter do not change. The original last letter is coming from the hua form and the last letter of the hua form, which is the ra. Okay. It is also not going to change. The original last letter is also not going to change. Okay. The ra is not going to change. It must start with the u sound, which is the dhamma sound, nu, and one must have one kasra after the dhammas, right? So it's going to be nusirat, right? Nusirat. So I'll skip the meanings so we can cover a bit more. So now I hope you understand the meaning. So if it was she helped, nusirat would mean she was helped, right? You just have to change the passive voice. Okay. Then you have nasarata. We will start it with the u sound. We will put the kasra on the swad because there is no other option. Ra and everything after it is not going to change because the last letter, original last letter, right? Nasarata. Nusirat. Nusirata. Nusirata. Okay? They both were helped, feminine. They both were helped, feminine. Nasarna. Nasarna is also the same. Nasarna is also the same, starting with the u sound, giving a one kasra to the sword. Sukun does not change. The original last letter does not change, and anything after it does not change. So the ra is going to remain the same. The noon is going to remain the same. Okay? Nusirna. Nusirna. They were helped. Feminine. They were helped. Feminine. Okay? You don't need to memorize this chart. You don't need to memorize the passive chart. All you need is to understand how the passive is made out of the active form. How the passive is made out of the active form. If you know this, if you understand this, you can make passives. You don't have to memorize it. It's not a new chart to memorize. It's just the logic. It's just the rules that you need to understand here. Okay? Okay? Then we have nasarata in anta form, isn't it? Then we had nasarata in the anta form. Nasarata. Not nasarata, nasarta, sorry. Nasarta. Okay? And that nasarta would become nusirta. I'm just going a bit quick because I hope you understand now. Yeah? But if you don't, no problem. We can revise it again. Nusirta, the last letter and anything after it does not change. The dhamma starting, one kasra after the dhammas, and so on. Nasartuma. Nasartuma. Nasartuma would become nusirtuma. Nusirtuma. Okay? And nasartum would become nusirtum. Nasartum would become nusirtum. Nusirtum. Okay? I'm going to copy and paste here just so we go quick, inshallah, because there's nothing major difference here. Okay. Then we had nasarti. Nasarti is going to change into nusirti. Yes, no change. Nusirti, it's just the same stuff. Nusirti. Nasartuma is going to stay nusirtuma and nasartuma. Okay. Nasartum is going to stay nasartum and nusirtum is going to stay. Sorry, it's not nasartum, it's nasartunna. Nasartunna, right? Nasartunna. It's going to become nusirtunna. Nothing changes, right? The sukoons do not change. There's a sukoon on the ra. And the ra is also the original last letter. It does not change. Nusirtunna. Okay? Then we have ana and nahnu left. Then we have ana and nahnu left. In case of ana, we had nasartu right? Nasartu. And in case of nahnu, we had nasarna. Nasartu would become nusirtu. 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 Okay? And nasarna would become nusirna. Okay? Right? You see this? You see the logic? You see the logic? It's pretty straightforward. It's pretty straightforward. There's nothing very challenging about this, really. In all honesty, I'm telling you. There's nothing very challenging about this. I'll just highlight the passives here so you know, right? A bit more clearly, the passives. So I'm just keeping the actives and the passives together so you know where the difference is and how we have derived it. How we have derived it, right? It's important to know. It's important to know. Okay? All right? So effectively, what we are saying, we are applying these rules, 4 rules. We're not changing sukoons. We're not changing the last letter, which was in the huwa form, and anything after it. We are making the dhammas as a beginning. As a beginning, we're always making a dhamma. If you see a fail starting with dhamma, always check if it is a passive or not. Not all fails starting with a dhamma would be passive. They have to apply, follow the same rules, right? They must, if it's a past tense, it must start with a dhamma. It must have a kasra after the dhammas somewhere. Between the starting and the last letter, it must have one kasra. It must have one kasra, and rest of it has to be dhamma or sukoons, right? Okay. So I'll give you some time. I'll give you a minute or so to explore this and digest this. Just digest this in your time before I move forward, inshallah. Just digest it. Okay? Take a minute. Okay? All right, very good. So what I'm going to do now here is I'm going to take the same chart, copy and paste it, and just make a nita passive chart. Okay? A nita passive chart. So you can just focus on the passives. Okay? So I'll just remove the active bits. Just remove these cells. Okay? So you have the entire passive chart in front of you. Okay? So if you have any questions, please post those questions. Don't worry about it. It's pretty straightforward. It takes a while to just digest everything. It's not a new chart. It's the same chart we're talking about since quite a while now, but we're just learning a new derivation. It's a new derivation of a fi'l. Okay, you're just learning a new form of a fi'l, which is a passive. Okay, and inshallah, as far as you understand those rules, those logics, it should be fine. Okay, so I'm just gonna make it neat for you, focused and neat. Okay, here we go. No color. Right? So that's your passive chart. That's your passive chart. all the pronouns apply the way they apply in the normal chart. Okay, they would just apply the way they apply in the normal chart. Let me make it bigger for you. Okay. Just like the normal case, right? I don't know why it's not going up, but yeah. Anyway, doesn't matter. So this is a chart. This is a chart that you have. Just give it a shot, inshallah. Try to construct it yourself. You will be able to. They are just these rules that you're applying. Okay, these are the past passive. The present passive is very, very similar, except just one change. There's just one change in the present passive. I'm gonna copy all of this, and I'm going to paste it here. Okay? And I'm going to start changing. I'm copying and pasting so you understand really the changes. So this is present tense. This is fi'il mudari. Okay. Fi'il mudari majhul instead of present mazi majhul. Rules to construct present tense. Rules to construct present passive. Present passive. Sukoons do not change, remain intact. The original last letter and anything after it does not change. It means endings do not change. It remains intact. Instead of this, you would have you would have you would have yunsaru. Yunsaru. I'll give you this example. Yunsaru. So this is the original last letter, the raw. There's some line here I'm trying to remove. Wait a second. Bear with me, please. Okay, let me write again. Yunsaru. Okay, so the original last letter is not going to change. So this ra is not changing. This ra is not changing. Okay. This is the passive form I've written. Okay. This is a passive form I've written. Okay. The present passive. Just like the past passive, always starts with a dhamma. Okay. The present passive, just like the past passive, always starts with a dhamma. Starts with a dhamma. But it's going to be one dhamma. It's going to be one dhamma. Okay. Just one dhamma. It's not going to be multiple dhammas. It's not going to be multiple dhammas. Okay. But the dhamma is followed. The dhamma is followed by multiple kasras. Its dhamma is followed by, sorry, not kasras, fathas. The dhamma is followed by multiple fathas. Multiple fathas. Not kasras. Okay. Multiple fathas. That's the major difference. The present tense passive will always start with one dhamma. Okay, let me just say it clearly. One dhamma. The one dhamma is followed by multiple fathas. Multiple fathas. Okay, how many fathas you can bring? If there's a room for one, you would just bring one. If there are 10, you would bring 10. Okay, but you would bring fathas. But up to the point until you reach the last letter. When you reach the last letter, then you don't change anything because of the rule number 2. And you encounter the sukoons in the middle, you don't change the sukoons too. Okay? You don't change the sukoons too. Okay? That's how you construct the present tense. Passive. Okay. So I'm going to move this on to the new page, and we are going to construct this chart, inshallah. Okay? We're going to construct this chart. The present tense passive. Let me take this chart. And I'm going to put it here. Okay? What I'm going to do is, first, let me just quickly populate the active present tense. Okay, so we had starting from the cell yansuru, we had yansuru, yansurani, and we had yansuruna, right? Yansuruna. Okay. And we had tansuru, and we had tansuru. Tansuru, tansurani. Tansurani, yansurna, yansurna. Okay. Where there's no haraka, there's a sukoon, right? So I hope you understand. If there's no haraka on the ra, it's a sukoon. Okay. Then we had the anta, antuma, antum, tansuru. And we had tansurani the same, tansurani. And then we had tansurani the same in the feminine case too. And we had antuma was tansuruna. Tansuruna. Okay. And we had tansurina in the anti form, which was different, if you remember. Tansurina wanted to stay different. Tansurina. Oops. Okay. Tansurina. Okay. And then we had tansurani, and then we had tansurna. Tansurna. Okay. And then we had ana, ansuru, and nahnu, nansuru. Here we go. Right? Good. That's the active chart. That's the active chart that we are quite familiar with, right? Now let's try to make it a passive chart. Let's try to make it a passive chart applying the rules above, right? Remember, sukoons do not change. The original last letter and anything after it does not change, meaning endings do not change. The present tense passive always starts with one dhamma. The beginning is going to be a dhamma. The beginning is going to be a dhamma. Okay? The beginning is going to be a dhamma. And that one dhamma is going to be followed by multiple fathas as much as possible until we reach the last letter. Until we reach the original last letter that we cannot change. Okay? So applying these rules, it starts with a dhamma. It's going to be you. Sukoon does not change. It remains intact. And then anything remaining until we hit the last letter, the original last letter, is going to be fatha. Then it's going to be yun saru. You see? Yunsaru. Why is the swad with fatha? Because it's not the last letter. It's anything after the beginning, right? And before the original last letter. Why is ra not fatha? Because it's the last letter. Okay? And it does not change. Then we have Yansurani. It's going to be yun because it starts with a dhamma and sukoons do not change. And anything after it is going to be fatha. Then you have sod, which is fatha, and rani, because it's the original last letter you have reached, you're not going to change anything. Okay? You're going to say rani. Yunsarani. Yunsarani. Okay? Yunsarani. Yansuruna would become Yunsaruna. Yunsaruna. You see that? Yunsaruna. Yunsaruna. Okay? Then we have Tansuru would become Tunsaru. Tunsaru. There's a logic to it, right? There's a logic to it. There's nothing very difficult about this. As far as you understand this logic, you should be able to do it, inshallah. Okay? Tansurani would become Tunsarani. Tunsarani. Okay? Tunsarani. Tunsarani. Okay? And Yansurna would become Yunsarna. Every time you're beginning with the with the oo sound, beginning with the oo sound, and then we are putting fathas as much as we can, okay, until we reach the original last letter from where we stop changing things. Okay, Yun Saruna, and we also don't change the sukoons. Okay, Tansuru is going to become Tunsaru. 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 Tansurani is going to become Tunsarani. Let me just copy and paste. Tunsarani. Nothing changes, right? It's the same. Tansuruna is going to become Tunsaruna. Tunsaruna. Okay? Tunsaruna. Tansurina. Tunsarina. Tunsarina. U beginning, no change on the sukoon. Sod takes the fatha because it's before the last letter and after the beginning, and everything from the last letter onwards does not change. Okay, Tunsarina. Okay, then we have Tansurani, which is again Tunsarani. This is again Tunsarani. I've put the noon here instead of a ta. Okay, then you have Tansurna that becomes Tun. That becomes Tunsarna. Tunsarna. Okay. Ansuru becomes Unsaru. Unsaru. Oops. Unsaru. Okay. And Nansuru becomes Nunsaru. Okay, that's your present tense passive chart. That's it. You have derived it from the active chart. Okay, you've derived it from the active chart. Okay, nothing special, right? All you need to do is follow these rules. Follow these rules. Okay. And remember, the doer is unknown. It's the naibul fa'il we are talking about. It's the naibul fa'il we are talking about here. Okay. Okay. So just one tip I'm going to give you here. So in the present tense, in the past tense passive, the sound effectively you're producing, if I have to tell you, there's a tip I want to give you. Okay? Tip, just to remember it. The sound that is produced by the fi'l in case of passive is like this. Is one oo in case of past passive, because you know it takes multiple oos, it takes multiple one or multiple dhammas, right? So it could be oo, 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 or so on. Multiple oos, and then in the end one kasra, which is e. Oo, e sound. Oo, e sound. Multiple oos and one e sound. Okay, multiple oos and then one e sound. Check out the rule number 3 here. The past passive always starts with one or multiple dhammas, which is oo sound, oo sound, oo sound, oo sound. And then there's one kasra, e. So you could remember it like this if you wanted to, right? You could remember it like this. Okay. In the case of present tense, it's different. In the case of present tense, this tip would be like this. Sound produced now, what we are saying, it starts with one dhamma, so it's going to be one oo, right? It's going to be one oo. It starts with just one dhamma, and it has multiple fathas. It has multiple fathas, so it's going to be oo ah ah ah, like a monkey sound. Yeah, oo ah ah ah. That's the kind of sound you will produce until you hit the last letter. Okay, with the present tense passives. Just keep that in mind, inshallah. Okay. All right. Excellent. So let me take you to the notes that we have prepared for this topic, inshallah, and I will inshallah share everything with you. Don't worry, I will share everything with you, and I will share this document that we have produced and also the notes that I'm going to show you now. I will share them with you. So let me show you what we have got. So these are not Bayyana notes anymore. These are Albayaan notes that we have prepared. Okay. For these topics, because these topics are not covered in the Bayyana course that we have. So we have prepared it ourselves. So you have everything here from the concept of done to the naibul file. Some examples that we have done here. Ali ate an apple. The doer is known, and the apple was eaten. The doer is unknown, and so on. And then you move forward. You have the past tense, fi'il mazi majhul, and the rules. I will expand on the rule number 2 a bit more before I share it with you. I will mention that the last letter bit, which I've not mentioned here. So the ending does not change effectively. That's what we have mentioned as a summary here. Okay. So I will change that, and I will mention that. I will share that with you, inshallah. And the tips are also there. So long oo sound, multiple oos, and one kasra. Multiple oos and one kasra. Okay, it's here. It's here. Okay, and then some examples are also here. Nasara means he helped. Nusira would mean he was helped. Okay, sajada, he prostrated. Sujida, he was prostrated. Kazzaba, he rejected. Kuzziba, he was rejected. And all of these are constructed using the rules above. Okay? Okay. Then khalaqu, they created. Khuliqu, they were created. Okay? Subtle differences, right? In the harakas. Then we have these examples with the naibul file, which is the outside doer and the outside done to. Okay? Just like we have in the normal case, if the fa'il is huwa or hiya, you look for the outside doer. In the passive case, you look for the outside done to, the naibul file. Okay, it's the same thing, and we have these examples listed here that you can review. Okay, like for example, khalaqal insan. Khalaqal insanu means the mankind created. Okay, and khuliqal insanu means the mankind was created. Right, the mankind was created. And then there's a full chart, okay, with all the pronouns listed here. I'm going to share this with you. Okay, So all the pronouns listed here for the Nasara chart, so you know. And now you know how to derive it, how it is constructed. There's a logic to it. You don't need to memorize it. Don't worry about memorizing it. Just remember the rules. Just remember the rules. Okay. And same story with the present tense passive. So the present tense passive, you identify by looking at the beginning and the middle part of the fi'l. Okay. Because you have the beginning u, and in the middle you have the fathas, right? So these are the rules. Sukuns do not change, endings do not change. The last letter bit I'll add, inshallah. The present passive always starts with a dhamma. One dhamma is followed by multiple fathas. Okay, multiple fathas. The sound produces one u and longer a sound. And similarly, the same examples are listed here for the present tense case that you can review in your own time. Okay, you can go through them, inshallah. And also for the outside file and the outside naibul file, both. Okay, these examples are here. Okay. One important aspect to identify here: the commanding and forbidding cannot be done with passive form. You don't have commanding and forbidding in the passive form. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Commanding and forbidding happens only in the active form. Okay, not in the passive form. Then we have this present tense passive chart that we have just constructed, and you can review, but not that you know how it is constructed. Okay, so these are the notes we prepared. There are some examples from the Quran as well. So the yellow ones are the passives, which are past passives. The mazi majhul, the green ones are present passive, and the gray highlight is the done to, which is the naibul file. Okay, so all the references are here. When I share the PDF, you can click on this link and you can go and see which ayah is it, okay, and which surah is it. And inshallah, you should be able to review it in your own time. So just so we do it a bit quickly here as well. Let me just take an example of this. وَخُلِقَ السَّمَاوَاتُ وَخُلِقَ الْإِنسَانُ ضعيفا وخلق الإنسان ضعيفا. Now what I'm looking at here is I'm looking at خلق. Now immediately I can see it starts with the u sound, and it has one kasra. It has one kasra, and ending is the same as the normal chart. Ending is the same as the normal chart. So I have to be careful. It's not khalaqa. It's not khalaqa. Khalaqa would be an active form. Khulika is a passive form. Okay, and then we have, it's a huwa version. It's a huwa version, and it has an ism which is in rafa state. It has an ism which is in rafa state. Khulikal insanu. Okay, the mankind was created. Okay, the mankind was created. Okay, umritu. Sorry, umirtu, not umritu. Umirtu. Umirtu. Now it's an u beginning. It's an u beginning. It cannot be a present tense because present tense does not end with a tu, right? And the present tense passive form does not have a kasra. It rather has a fatha. So it has a kasra and it has a u beginning, and the ending is like nasartu. It's like nasartu, isn't it? Like ana. It's like ana. Ana nasartu. So it's going to be ana form of the passive. Okay, ana is going to be the naibul file, not the done to, right? It's going to be naibul file, not the done to. Iza zulzilati. Zulzilati. It's like nasarti changed into zulzilati. It's a u beginning. Okay, sukoons are not changing. There's one kasra. There's one kasra, and the last letter of the huwa form, which is the lam. Okay. Okay. So this is the passive form of the past tense. This is the past passive. Okay. It's like nasarti. Nasarti. Nasarti is like hiya form. It's not nasarti, it's nasarat, zulzilat. Effectively, yes, it's an important point. I just realized it's an important point. It's not. It's not a kasra in the end. Effectively, it's basically zulzilat. Zulzilat. Why is it zulzilat? Because it is referring to an outside naibul file, right? And this outside naibul file is al-ard. And what is the gender of al-ard? It's a feminine, isn't it? Al-ard is because the Arab said so, right? Remember that? It's because the Arab said so. It's feminine. And the feminine pronoun is here. And in case of here, what is the past tense? It's nasarat, right? Nasarat. So it cannot be zulzilati. It cannot be nasarati. It cannot be nasarati, right? It is a kasra here because what we did last time, there is an alif. If there is an alif followed by a sukoon, if there is a sukoon and then there is an alif, if your fi'l is ending in a sukoon and then there is an alif after it, then you would put a kasra instead of a sukoon just for the flow. But from grammatical perspective, it's still the sukoon. Okay, it's still the sukoon. Just keep that in mind. Ullimat, ullimat. This is like not ullimat. Ulimta, sorry, I'm reading it wrong. Ulimta, ulimta. Okay, it's nasarta. It's nasarta pattern. Okay, so there's one u, and there's one kasra, and then the remaining ending is not changing, right? It's the anta form, nasarta form. Okay. This is a nice ayah. This is ayah from, I think, Hujurat, or yeah, I think this is Surah Hujurat. It says La yukhlikuna shay'an. Wait a second. This is where I'm reading. La yukhlikuna shay'an wa hum yukhlakun. La yukhlikuna shay'an wa hum yukhlakun. That's what I'm reading. Okay? La yukhlikuna shay'an wa hum yukhlakun. So in the first case, it's yakhlukuna. It's not the fatha beginning. It's not the dhamma beginning. It's just the normal beginning. It's an active form of fi'l. It's an active form of present tense fi'l. Hum. La yakhlukuna. And there is a la. Is it a forbidding? No, it's not forbidding because it's not the lightest form. It's just a statement, right? La yakhlukuna. This means yakhlukuna, khalaqa means to create. They do not create. They do not create. It's talking about the idols. It's talking about the idols. Okay? They do not create shay'an, anything. They do not create shay'an, anything. Okay? Wahum, and they are. This is the mubtada. Wahum, it's an independent pronoun, therefore it's a mubtada, and there's a hit. Invisible is after it. Wahum yukhlaqoon. Wahum yukhlaqoona. Now there is a dhamma beginning. There is a dhamma beginning. The last letter and anything after it is not changing, and there is a fatha everywhere else where there is no sukoon. Okay. Now this is the act. This is the passive form of the present tense. There is a passive form of the present tense. This statement then would read as they do not create anything, and they are created. They are created. They are created. Okay? They are created. I'm not sure if it is Hujurat. I'm forgetting which one is it. Could be Hujurat, yes. Okay? Right. So quickly on this one, Tuzlamuna, it's a present tense home form of active. present tense, sorry, home form of passive, not active. Home form of passive, okay? Present tense. So there is a negation here, but it's not a forbidding. It's not forbidding. It's not lightest. It's nothing like that, right? So the light and the lightest hurufs that we have done, they may apply to passives, absolutely. They can apply to passive. The light harfs, the lightest harfs, they can come before passive, make them light or lightest, just like the way you make active light or lightest. Okay, that's not a problem. That's fine. But you won't have forbidding and commanding in passive voice. Okay. Now you have Qudi'a al-amru. Qudi'a al-amru. This is U beginning, one kasra, and the same ending. Okay, this is the hua form. This is the hua form of the past tense. This is the hua form of the past tense, like nasara, right? Like nusira. Nusira in passive case. Nusira. And it has a naibul file, which is the outside done to. The naibul file, which is outside done to, because it's a rafa. Okay? And then turja'u, turja'u, it's the u beginning. Sukoons are not changing. There's a fatha, and there's an ending which is the same. Okay? The ending does not change. It's a hua form of the present tense. Yunsaru, yunsaru. And al-amru, al-umuru is going to be the naibul file done to. Okay? Done to. Outside done to. Okay? Good. I will share these notes with you, inshallah. Okay? So review them in your own time. Try to construct the passive chart yourself as much as you can. Inshallah, it's we have covered quite a bit today, I know. So it could be a bit overwhelming because we've covered quite a bit today. Don't worry about it. It's not difficult. It's not difficult. Just take some time to get used to it. Okay. Just try to pick up a fa'il and construct the passive chart for it. Okay, and inshallah you'll be good. All right. So one announcement, and this time probably certain announcement. Next Saturday, the class is not going to be live. It's going to be recorded only. Okay. Please come and listen to the recording, because the class on Sunday is going to be based in use of that knowledge as well. Okay. So if you miss out on the Saturday class, you may struggle with the Sunday class. Okay. So kindly make sure, if you can, come and take the class, recorded class, inshallah. It will be good for all of us. Okay. So until then, take care, stay safe. I will see you next week, inshallah. Until then, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.